Scott Overton, welcome to the virtual studios here. This is an exciting evening, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm excited, and it's always good to talk to you, Mark. Thanks for hosting this for me. Yeah, new book is always exciting because you want to be able to reach the readers with it and see how they react to it and respond to it. Fingers crossed.
So we just watched the trailer for that, which kind of explains it. But can you kind of explain the setup for Augment Nation? Augment Nation, which is a science fiction thriller. What is the basic premise for this?
Well, the idea is it's about only 20 years or so from now, and computer brain augments, they call them BCIs, brain computer interfaces, are the next must-have technology, status technology, taking over from smartphones. Because if you've got a direct computer, brain to computer link from there to the internet, well, you need a smartphone for it. You don't. You can do everything with that. However, the premise of it has a lot of promise. You could imagine amazing things with that capability. You can also imagine some pretty horrendous things. And so the story is about a young man named Damon Leiter who has had a brain implant surgically implanted in his brain. From a car accident, he had some brain damage, could not recognize faces or even most objects. So he had this augment implanted. Years later, after many hardware and firmware updates, when they become a consumer item, he's right there and has more experience and capability with them than anyone. So when stuff hits the fan, he's well placed to be responsible and try to fight the onslaught that comes.
Well, I was just thinking about the possibilities because one of the challenges I have is remembering people's names. He sometimes introduces like, "Hey, hi Scott, how's it going? I'm Mark," and then 2 seconds later, "What's his name? What's his name?" Wouldn't it be great if I could instantly have that maybe that facial recognition? Go, "Oh, that's Scott Overton. I know him from. He's a Sudbury writer, etc."
It's all there, like your contact
Yeah,
list or your notes list or anything like that. Add a thought because it's
ex-
directly picking up your brain waves, your brain thoughts, your neural impulses, translating them to a computer and picking up the information right back. That's the thing about it. The potential is absolutely amazing. And I'm not making this up. I'm not the only one. And, people may wonder, why would I place it only 20 years in the future? That sounds way off. Well, if brain-computer interfaces have been around for decades in simpler forms as they built the technology. They got a lot of attention when Elon Musk created Neuralink. So the Neuralink company is well known, although they have not yet reached the point of human trials. They've worked with animals. And there is another company I know of, at least one in Australia, I believe it's called Synchron, that is in human trials already. The first reason they want to do this is to help people with brain damage or some other neural problem that prevents them from operating their bodies as they should be, to be able to activate either their own bodies or with robotic enhancements, or perhaps other robotic electronic devices. And that is indeed what they are doing to this point. But if you were to go to the Neuralink website, you could see all kinds of forecasts for things that they may be able to do in the future with this technology as it is improved.
So you're actually saying, I mean, obviously based on these examples, that this is not the not too distant future. This is something where the questions we're asking, we're going to actually have to deal with very soon, aren't we?
That's the thing. I mean, I sort of tell people direct brain to computer to internet access. What could go wrong? Well, we know that every single device we have can be hacked. We know that there is no network in the world that is completely safe from being infiltrated or hacked, distorted, manipulated, whatever way it is. This will be no different. But we have to decide in part whether we undertake those risks, and also whether we want to give that ability to really link to our own thoughts to someone else, because there will be intermediaries. There obviously is with any kind of computer network. And there are people who are really going to want to be having access to that, and they are the marketers and the governments. And I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I mean, I think that the conspiracy theories that are out there now are fantasy for now, but by this point, they probably won't be 20 or 30 years from now.
Right. Now, when I think about the way that we're connected to technology, right? Like I reach in my back pocket, there, got my smartphone, this powerful, powerful computer. There is a home system made from the people at Google that, is all over my house. So I could ask it questions, just like on Star Trek, ask it to do calculations or translate or whatever. I can listen to the news. I can have it play music. We've got, Facebook and YouTube and all the different social media. And now you and I are having a conversation in my house, for example. I've seen situations where you're having a conversation about, oh, we should look at booking a trip to Florida or something like that. And the next thing you know, Facebook's showing me Florida ads. I never typed anything into my computer. I never did anything. So it feels like, not to be paranoid, but it feels like these systems are already listening, and we're not even connected to our brains yet, right?
Right.
It's this device that's always listening. It's that device over there on the shelf. It's the whatever. I mean, that really makes you want to pause.
I had an experience like that where I swear everything was disconnected. I was using a cellular, connection for internet, and it didn't even have a signal. And yet it still showed me something the next day that I thought that is not possible as a coincidence. So yes,
It's like it's stored offline.
Yeah, exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. There are many different potential risks to it that we will have to look at. And one of them is the consumerism that is an inherent part of our society right now. It's very big because we have marketing messages thrown at us constantly. We're bombarded by the constantly. Well, imagine now you can get some tailored right to you. You can walk past billboards in some places and they might recognize you or whatever. And never mind everything that happens online. Now, if you've got an actual brain internet connection, imagine the marketing potential there and how we would resist that. We could have any kind of offer thrown at us right there in our minds. And how do you fight that off?
Right.
Well, buy. And that's what you saw in the trailer, a marketer's dream,
I mean,
a conspiracy watchdog's nightmare.
yeah. Well, again, because I don't have to attend to watch it, look at it on a screen, hear it. It's in my mind. I might become a member of the Hair Club for Men instantly because the wet dream of a market for bald spray that you spray your hair on. Comment. I'm just going to pop up here. It says spam ported directly to the brain. Talk about distracting potential. Good point.
There's an excellent point. We're distracted by having our computers and our phones nearby. With that feed constantly there, I don't know how you ignore it and actually get some work done. That could be incredibly difficult. Now,
man.
The inspiration for the book actually came from that sort of element of it, as I've discussed in various places. We give so much access to people now, to many companies. We get little rewards or reward points. They know all the purchases we make. They know everywhere we go. They know almost everything we do. And as you say, it sometimes seems like they're monitoring us and listening all the time. Now I really sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think many people would argue with those points. So we give them that access now in return for baubles, or maybe a little bit of extra convenience. We're very, very big on convenience. So do we read those user agreements, end user agreements? No, we just skip to them and accept them. And we get all this convenience in return for incredible access to our private lives and our opinions, tastes, you name it.
I don't remember the company it was, but I remember I was listening on a podcast and it was about that loyalty brand market. The retailer knows the consumer better than the consumer knows themselves and then anticipates what they're going to need. And I remember the story of a couple, they're probably, in their 50s or whatever, well beyond having new kids. They had, teenage, young adult children. and their household was delivered baby stuff because of this anticipatory that a baby was coming, and they were thinking, this is a joke, what's going on? And it was their teenage daughter who was pregnant, and they somehow knew based on some of the shopping, some of the browsing that was going on, and this goes back a good 6 or 7 years. So this is like, imagine just how much more sophisticated the marketers can be.
Yeah, that's right. And when you think about the iPhone actually only being around for about 15 years now, thereabouts, and the BlackBerry before that, up to about 1999 or so, it came out, I think. And that technology has advanced so rapidly, and all of the algorithms and the marketing stuff that you're talking about right now, surveillance things, if you wanted to actually call it, we give them access to our location with location services on so many devices. So all of that's there. Now, the story of Augment Nation is about this guy who finds himself placed better than anyone to resist the things that are going on from both the marketing end and the government end. And what is his job in this? How can he fight back and maybe stem the tide? But he's had a pretty tough childhood. And, I'll read from the book in a little while. It's not easy for him when he's starting out, and it's not easy for him as an adult facing this responsibility. I know you're a big Spider-Man fan. With great power comes great responsibility. That's the kind of thing that he faces later in life. And it's a pretty steep uphill battle that he has to face.
Wow, amazing. So this is the book launch. It's the official book launch. But can you let people know? So, for example, I got it on opening day. I downloaded it. I purchased it. It came to my Kobo at 12:01 a.m. on the day that it was released a few days ago. And I haven't read it yet because I'm just finishing off another book, but that's next on my to read list. So I got it. I got the ebook version, but there are other versions of this available, right?
Well, as a matter of fact, there are. Yeah. I mean, I always make the ebook available, and it's available everywhere that ebooks are sold online, virtually all over the world, and through the usual suspects too. I also have a paperback that I'll do that. And you can see that the cover is the same. Let me get a little bit there. And it's a beautiful cover again, and it goes quite well with my other books, a very, very similar style. And for the first time, I decided to do a hardcover. Part of that was because my cover artist came up with this beautiful cover that was like a retro 1970s classic science fiction cover, and I loved it. So I had to go with that too.
So you have you have the hardcover that has a different. So collectors may want both. Now, hang on, Scott. I'm going to remove myself from the screen so you can hold them both up and everyone can.
Can we see them both? Man, I'm not good with this camera, but yes, you can see the hardcover, which is my left, which is my right. Very different covers, but I love them both. And so that's what I've gone with for a hardcover as well, which is, of course, more expensive. They used to always have hardcovers come out first, and then paperback only a fair bit later. And now, of course, people rarely do hardcovers if they're in indie publishing. And probably a lot of the big companies don't do them either, unless there's
And you can find links to those books over at scottoverton.ca, I imagine.
Yeah, my webpage has just about everything. It has links to the book trailers and descriptions and sample pages, sample readings of the book, and all the universal book links and everything like that. I love the universal book links because people can click on those. They go right to their own kind of page that takes them where they want, their favorite retailer, right to the book every time, and it's wonderful. Awesome. Matt says looks great. I see that. Yes, the hardcover, a real classic SF vibe. Yeah.
Nadine likes the cover as well.
Mm-hmm. And I've got a great cover artist I've worked with now for 4 books, and still love it.
And a great designer. And I do like the fact that all your books have a very similar feel. And it's that, I call it almost like Robert J. Sawyer, who gave you an amazing quote for this book.
He did.
A lot of Rob, my favorite novels of Rob's are his near future science fiction.
Well, this is the thing about it. He has done some far future things, but for the most part, he looks at, and I also follow, I'm of the same school, looks at trends in society, technologies that are coming out, things that are going to change our world and explores them in a science fiction context. But he doesn't just write an essay about it, or that's no fun. He writes very human stories. And I try to, I believe I do too. So they're about real people in many cases, unthinkable situations, but based on real life issues, and very often issues that we're going to have to think about very hard because they're coming at us quickly. Augment Nation is a perfect example of that.
Excellent. And I saw that the Sudbury Star, so you are a Sudbury area author. I saw that they actually released an article about the book release today. It was
Yeah.
yeah, and it's very again like the stuff we've been talking about tonight. You read it and you go, huh. Do I look forward to this? Is it a cautionary tale? And how is our hero going to deal with this?
Well, cautionary tales have been around in science fiction for many years, and the most famous ones are things like 1984 and Brave New World and Fahrenheit 451. Not as many recent ones, perhaps, that come to mind immediately, but it's much more than a cautionary. Of course, it is a good story. It's a rip-roaring kind of thriller that has a lot of action in it, and a very human story, because there's the big question, is he still human with this capability? And I've sort of mentioned on the back cover blurb, he may be the next step in human evolution, but that may also make him a danger to the human race.
Oh, wow. So, are you going to treat us with a little sample from the book?
I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, I kind of picked out a couple of short readings, one from the opening of the novel because it sets up the story. And we'll be able to tell that it's kind of it goes into some flashbacks after that. And I also wanted to give a little bit of the character's childhood and his school years, which are a very challenging time for him for various reasons. So the first reading is the very opening of the book. And the various segments come back to this particular time frame throughout the early part of the book. Recovery and Rehabilitation, September 3rd, 2040. Memorial Hospital Trauma Center, Surgical Critical Care Unit, 5th floor. Damon Leiter looked down over his broken body and understood that the course of his life had become defined by two things. The computer implants in his head had undergone a hard reset, and he was going to have to rely on his organic brain to figure out who tried to kill him. The implants were still functioning. He could feel them, unless it was an illusion, like phantom limbs after an amputation. Data from the past 48 hours should have flowed back into his conscious awareness a few minutes after such a reset. That's what he'd been told, but it had never happened before, should never have happened. He checked for the presence of long-stored data, like a tongue probing a tooth. Yes, older data was still there. He took a mental sniff. There was lots of Wi-Fi and White-Fi in the area, the stale, rusty smell of older, slower frequencies, probably installed 5 years ago, but also the ozone-sharp scent of the newest vintage. That made sense. He was in a hospital room, and there was probably a well-connected nursing station nearby. Like a human brain, his implants had a buffer to hold new data for a time before it was sorted by importance for long-term storage. Maybe the buffer had been damaged, although a strong power flux from a hard impact could have wiped it. A basic diagnostic scan didn't show any lasting malfunction, just a blank where the past 48 hours should be. No digital memory of those 2 days at all. That was a problem. He turned his eyes to the far wall with its flat pastel green paint. Shouldn't there be a mirror there? A window to the left? Vid screen hanging in the high corner to the right? No, that was another hospital room 15 years ago. Strange that the old memory was so vivid. He relaxed and let his eyes lose focus. He didn't want old memories. He needed the fresh stuff of the past 2 days, and plenty of it. Real memory was a capricious thing, like the still surface of a pond. Touch it wrong, and the ripples would distort the image it reflected beyond recognition. It was doubtful that he'd actually find the details he needed there, or be able to fully trust the ones that did arise, but it might give him a place to start. At first, nothing came. Then he felt the room lurch into a spin, and his muscles jerked and snapped like a string of firecrackers tossed on the ground. He groaned and arched with a bright swell of agony, and dimly heard an alarm go off from some equipment behind him. Nurses would soon come running. No good. Pushed to revisit the moment of near death, his brain relived only the trauma without revealing peripheral details. Or fear and confusion had simply never allowed those elements to register in his mind in the first place. He was badly broken, but he'd survived. To stay alive, he'd need to know who had tried to kill him and how urgently they would try again. There was no way to determine that with the information from his biological neurons alone, but it was clear that he wouldn't be leaving the hospital bed anytime soon. He might as well use the time to search his digital archives. How far back should he look? Through 9 years of data? To those early days he'd rather forget, when he was the boy David and not yet the man who'd become Damon? Could he even be sure the identity of his would-be murderer was there to be found in the sensate library of his life? It had to be. He had to trust that there'd be a clue somewhere in the shades of his past. He closed his eyes and pictured an accordion string of images, a photo album stretching far off to an obscure horizon. And then he sent his mind hurtling along it. And as the young boy, David, as he is in his early life, goes to school, he has problems because he's got his head shaved. He's obviously undergone surgery on his skull. And in school, he sometimes spaces out a little bit, and there's a bit of a reason for that. The other kids noticed how his eyes went blank when he was consulting his implant. They began to call him Spacey, and the name stuck. He took to spacing out more and more in class, choosing to retreat into his head and revisit the few good memories his implant had filed for safekeeping. TV shows and movies he had watched once could be rerun as often as he wanted in the privacy of his mind. He could even get away with that in class sometimes because his eyes moved with the action, nearly camouflaging the blankness of his other features. Eventually, though, his teachers caught on. After that, they called on him often to see if he was paying attention. David began to hate his teachers. Except Ms. Brooks. She was kind to him, and she was pretty. He hardly ever zoned out in her class because she made things interesting, and once in a while she gave a smile just for him that made his breath stop. He paid close attention to her, waiting for those magic moments. He couldn't get up the nerve to say much to her in grade 9, but when he found himself in her English class again in grade 10, he thought it must be destiny. It wasn't too difficult to arrange to be the last to leave her classroom, and sometimes she spoke to him then. She'd ask him what class he had next, or if he had any brothers or sisters at home. One time she even walked with him to his next class. That had to mean something. David began to think about a plan. The very next day he found himself alone with Ms. Brooks. He had a study period, and she asked him to help her sort some papers. He quickly agreed, then nearly spoiled everything by getting the papers mixed up, all of his attention focused on finding something clever to say. His chance came when Ms. Brooks asked him if he had a favorite author. He knew that she loved Shakespeare, and his implant was fully supplied. He called forth the words and let them roll from his mouth. "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest." "David, I'm very flattered, especially that you would have memorized that sonnet for me," she said, her face shading pink. "But that's probably not something you really want to say to your teacher." Not want to say? True, it only hinted at what he really wanted to say. Maybe a sonnet wasn't enough. Perhaps something more impressive, from Venus and Adonis. "Fondling," she saith, "since I have hemmed thee here within the circuit of this ivory pale, I'll be a park, and thou shalt be my deer. Feed where thou wilt, on mountain or in dale. Graze on my lips, and if those hills be dry, stray lower where the pleasant fountains lie." Miss Brooks' eyes grew wide, and the pink in her cheeks had turned to red. He felt his stomach turn over. "Good God, David, that's more than an inappropriate. What do you think I am?" Flustered, she snatched at his sleeve and yanked on it. "Come on, David, you need to explain your choice of Shakespeare to Mr. Sharp." David tried to protest his innocence on the way to the vice principal's office, but no words came to his rescue. His implant was obstinately silent.
Okay, I was laughing the Venus and Adonis quote. I forgot that there's some parts of Shakespeare that are pretty raunchy.
Festive? Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, that was fantastic. I cannot wait to dig into this.
Well, I'm glad. And yeah, I mean, the thing of it is, he's an ordinary guy who has an untenable childhood from the point on that he gets this augment. It gives him great abilities, amazing abilities, and yet he's an outcast.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I'm so curious. Like those two scenes are kind of, I like the ending with the humor in that other scene, but then the tension and the suspense. So yeah, and you really enjoy that combination of thought provoking concept, like for science and science fiction, but then also there's the tension, there's the action, there's the thriller aspect. What did you have a preference, or is it just something that you just mix?
Yeah, I find myself gravitating to that. As I was saying, we mentioned Robert J. Sawyer and the very human stories exploring current issues and future issues, but I always tend to get the thriller element in there. I like some excitement in there, and so I kind of describe the stories as science fiction thrillers. And the people compare them most often to Michael Crichton because they're a high
Yeah.
concept kind of science idea, but a thriller plot in there. So, we traveled through the human bloodstream and had an alien living inside the main character, and, explored some time travel and global espionage and things like that. So now here
Oh,
we are with future tech.
yeah, exactly. A comment from David after your reading, very impressive. So thanks for that. Thanks for that, David. Now, Scott, you have some
Thank you.
offers, I think, for
Well, I
people
do.
who are interested.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, I'd like to give away some copies of the book, so I'll give away a copy of the hardcover and a copy of the paperback, and I'll send those out. And I also have codes that I can give to people we'll give away 3 copies of the ebook, I think. And then also for those people who don't win, a 50% off discount so that
cool.
people can get
All
half
right.
price as long as they redeem the coupon on Google Play within the next week.
So how are we
So I don't
going
know if you
to?
got your
Yeah,
amazing list there. If you can pick from the
yeah.
list and pick some winners, that would be great.
So is this from the list of people who have left comments? So now's a chance to leave a comment. Is that right?
Well, it can be anybody in attendance. So if you have a list of attendees or whatever, anybody like that
Okay.
can be doing it. Unless there are people who don't want to win the book, they could say so. But
Okay. So I can only
leave that
see
one
the
to
list of
you.
people who have commented. I can't see the other people who
So
are
we better
watching. So
give them
that's,
some.
yeah. So basically, I
Better
see
give
that
people just
Matthew,
a little bit of a
Nadine,
minute. Yeah.
and David have commented. Um, so did you want me to do the random number generator?
Yeah. Well, whatever you can do there. If there's anybody that you want to give a couple more minutes to jump in
Sure.
and say, "I'm in. I want this,"
Oh,
or whatever. We'll give them a
uh,
couple of minutes.
Janice left a
I
comment, so
have,
I'm going to add her name to that. And does this tech interfere with natural
that
thought?
we got a great quote from Rob Sawyer, and that was pretty exciting too. So, what now? Janice is asking, does this tech interfere with natural thoughts? I think our phones interfere with our natural thoughts. I think absolutely it could. And the only question is, how do we lock down your brain once you've given it this access to the computer? You want to be able to give a thought and say, what was the price of this on this date back in that year because I want to win a bet or something. And you want to get that instantly like you would Google something. And so you want that instant access and availability. At the same time, how do you lock out the other information that could be bombarding you? So I think it could interfere with natural thoughts. The problem that David/Damon has too is that, especially in school, he doesn't mean to ever cheat, but information is just readily available to them, instantly available to them. So, what do you do? Is it cheating if you just know?
Right. Janice doesn't have a phone. That's kind of
You
cool.
don't have a phone? Oh my gosh, man. Well, I can see that too. How would a person tell the difference? I don't know. I think after a point you'd be able to know. And that is one of the risks that would be involved. But as I've said before, this is really coming our way. This is going to happen. And we've seen how smartphone technology and other similar technologies, electronic communications technologies, have exploded. And I think this will too. So it is clear and present danger, to borrow another title of a book. And we do have to think about it hard.
Excellent. Should we do, what are we drawing for the first one? I've got the random number generator here.
Yeah, we'll draw for the paperback first. Let's make the hardcover first, and then the paperback.
Okay.
And then 3 ebook copies.
All right. So I've put in the 4 names of people who've commented. I've got them numbered 1 to 4, and I'm on random.org. I put them in and I hit generate, and I am given number 1, and that would be Matthew Del Papa. So that was that for the hardcover, right?
That's the hardcover. Congratulations, Matt.
Excellent.
Great.
Congrats, Matt. And then the paperback?
Mm-hmm.
And the paperback is number 4. That would be Janice. Janice. It's a good thing that's not the ebook for Janice, because normally you could read an ebook on your phone. But so
right.
and Scott, you're going to sign these. So should they email you?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it'd be best to do that, and then we can exchange the address so I can get the book to them and everything else. Okay. So they can email me at scott@scottoverton.ca. Couldn't be simpler. Scott@scottoverton.ca is my email address. It's on the website too, so they can't miss it, and can contact me. And as far as the ebooks go, if you've still got some other takers, we can give away.
Okay. Actually, yeah. Now I noticed there's a new comment from Scott Raymond as well. So, all right. So for the ebook, I'm just going to change that to 5 now, and hit random and go ebook. Well, so if somebody's already won the hard copy, I'm just going to hit generate again, and I'm going to go So Nadine, get a copy of the ebook, and I guess Nadine, you can email Scott at Scott Overton, and he'll send you a code where you can download that book, get access to it.
Yep.
Awesome. Good stuff. And then you also had a code for people who wanted to support you, maybe buy the.
Now, if you only have a couple of other that commented or whatever, we can give them ebooks.
So everyone who's watching this live who's commented, you go ahead and email Scott at Scott Overton. I've got your names. I'm giving them to Scott, so he'll know that if you're trying to sneak one in afterwards. But you know what? Email him and just say, hey.
Anybody else who didn't.
Yeah. If you're looking to get a hold of this, because then, you'll be able to download it. So there's another comment from Matthew Del Papa. L. Ron Hubbard had a character with total recall. People thought him a genius, but he became a lazy thinker. The same is probably inevitable with augments.
I think that's a big danger there. Absolutely. It's already a danger because we don't remember anything now. We don't remember names and phone numbers like we used to do. We don't remember any of that stuff. We can look it up anytime we want. We don't remember facts about history, geography, and look it up.
Liz always challenges me. We're watching a TV show and we're trying to remember an actor's name or something, and she goes, "Let's not use our Google brains. Let's use our old school brains. Let's think this out instead of just going and searching for it."
We had trivia contests and everything for fun, but now we look it up. Now, anybody else? I did want to mention they had the 50% discount coupon. So if you can put that up,
I'll pop that up here. So I got the 50% off coupon here.
Anybody who didn't comment and didn't win one.
If you're not watching this live, you have a week, right? It's going to be good till October 19th, and I'm going to drop it in the comments now. Is it going to let me? Yeah, it's going to let me drop it in the comments. I have the link to where you can get 50% off the book at Google, up until October 19th.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've posted it to both Facebook and to YouTube, so the link will be there, but it's also on the screen if you want to copy that down. Good luck. It's always a challenge, but there's the links.
It afterwards.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And there was another comment.
So free didn't get that and copy it down.
Comment here from Scott. This is so cool. And a question for you, Scott, is do you miss working in radio? Because you were live to, tens of thousands of people every morning listening in to you during their commute, most likely. You miss that?
Well, it's sometimes, sometimes I miss it. It's fun. But the funny thing is that I have nightmares about it now. They're not nightmares about real things that happen. They're nightmares about things not working. So, frustration nightmares. I guess it's when you're feeling any kind of frustration, it comes out in your dreams. So that's the kind of things I dream about. I can't find the right music, or my microphone is not working, or whatever it is. That's where it comes back to me even more than voluntary memories. But what was great about it was being a part of people's lives for so many years, and many people still recognize me. And I sell my books at a local market in person, and people will come up to me and remember that. In fact, we should mention that if anybody's in the Sudbury area, I will be doing an in-person launch this Saturday, which is October 15th. The market it's the last day of the season, the Sudbury market, for the outside market. And then it goes inside to the grounds of Science North. So for the last day of outside, whether downtown on Elgin Street, they will be 9 until 4, a longer day. And I will have some book bags, and I'll have some treats and some balloons to make it festive. And of course, autographing any copies of Augment Nation and my other books that anybody wants.
Awesome. That is fantastic. And then any other events, I imagine people can find out from your website, scottoverton.ca.
Yeah, I'll do that. Mostly, I'll be at the market most weeks because it's a good way to meet people and talk to them, and they come back afterward and give you comments on the book. And you can reach out, put it actually physical copies of the books in the hands of people, readers. I love that.
And books always make the most amazing gifts as the holiday season is upon us. It's never too early to buy books for the Christmas season.
Well, and especially when we can personalize it for them. Because, not only is it an autograph copy, which makes it kind of special, it may be a copy from a local personality, so you find it special that way, but we can personalize it to whoever's getting the gift. So that's an extra bit too.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Scott, thanks so much for hanging out and sharing the excitement of the new book and some samples from it, just to tease us into it. And obviously the amazing discussion that comes from, this thought-provoking sci-fi thriller.
I think it will provoke many discussions still to come, and I look forward to seeing them and hearing them. Thank you, Mark, for doing this. I've enjoyed it tremendously.
Awesome.
Thank everybody for coming out too.
Thank you guys for your wonderful comments and questions. We are going to close with that awesome trailer again. Have a great night.